Donald Trump has named RFK Jr. as his pick for Health and Human Services Secretary.
Gaetz won't get confirmed. Everybody knows that.
I think the president's entitled to broad presumption in favor of his cabinet.
Matt Gaetz's nomination alone is likely to bring chaos to the Department of Justice.
I was taught if you don't have anything good to say very little.
The sequence and timing of Mr. Gaetz' resignation from the House raises serious questions about the contents of the House Ethics Committee report.
President Biden is kicking off what's likely to be his final lap on the world stage.
A lot is being talked about ahead of President Biden's big meeting on Saturday with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Across the Northeast, a red flag warning is back in some areas, with more fire a serious concern.
This has been an unprecedented year as far as the dryness that we're seeing here in New Jersey, New York as well.
Satirical news outlet The Onion has purchased Alec Jones's InfoWars at auction.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be here until they come in here and turn the lights off.
Hello, thank you for joining us. We begin our report with President-elect Donald Trump's growing list of picks to fill his next administration. Trump announced Thursday he plans to nominate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. That would put him in charge of agencies like the CDC, the FDA, and more. Trump spoke last month about bringing Kennedy into his administration.
Robert F. Kennedy cares more about human beings and health and the environment than anybody. I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines.
Kennedy has been critical of vaccine safety and called for the removal of fluoride from public water. He also said if confirmed to lead the department, he would fire, quote, every nutritional scientist, adding that the HHS doesn't need, quote, more medical expertise. Meanwhile, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are reacting to Trump's announced pick for another cabinet position. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Gaetz had been the subject of a House Ethics Committee investigation into several allegations, including that he engaged in sex with a minor, which he denies.
Elections have consequences. He chose Matt Gaetz. Matt will come before the committee, and he will be asked hard questions, and we'll see how he does.
What do you think of him?
I voted for a lot of people I didn't like.
What do you? He's selecting those who he's got a comfort level with. The real question is going to be, does the Senate, that has the responsibility for the confirmation, have the same level of comfort?
Well, we have a process around here for considering presidential nominees, and that's where all of the questions that you have and that we have will be answered under oath, and we'll hear from a variety of other witnesses. So.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins me now. Ed, good to see you. What more do we know about RFK Jr.'s agenda and his relationship with President-elect Trump?
Well, the relationship has deepened since he dropped out of the presidential race over the summer and became a close confidant of President-elect Trump, traveling with him a great deal in the closing weeks of the election. And in the days since Election Day, has been in Florida helping review potential picks and helping make early decisions about who's going to fill out the administration. He's perhaps best known as a skeptic when it comes to vaccines, but has said in the closing days of the campaign that he would not necessarily support a mandate, but with President-elect Trump's request, essentially allow people to have the choice. That kind of talk is going to immediately cause broader public debate about whether or not vaccines are worth it, the efficacy of them, the effectiveness of them, and that concerns a lot of public health officials and others who worry about the spread of various diseases. He's been a critic of or concerns about the need to tackle chronic diseases and a belief that the federal government isn't doing enough maybe to stop it, has claimed that a number of health issues have worsened because of a lack of federal action, like autism or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, sleep disorders, and fertility rate obesity, and has essentially declared if you're some of those subject matter professionals working at places like HHS, if he gets confirmed, they're going to be fired on day one. And what that speaks to, Lindsay, more broadly, is what we're seeing President-elect Trump do, not just in the health space, but in the legal space and in the national security space. A desire based on the results of the election and Trump's belief that his supporters want him to do this, to seriously disrupt the status quo here in Washington when it comes to those that have been running these large departments and subject matters of great concern to people, whether it's national defense or public health. And in the interim, between now and Inauguration Day or whenever these people are confirmed, perhaps compel some of those subject matter experts, those longtime employees, those that have been criticized by Trump and his allies over the last several years, to quit or to retire early and to get out of the way so that it would be easier for them, once they get in, to start making changes to their liking. So anyone who's sort of shocked or concerned about this, frankly, wasn't paying attention during the campaign season when Trump and these allies that are now getting these positions signaled that they supported these kinds of wholesale changes. And it should be of no surprise to lawmakers on Capitol Hill who over the last few days have been reacting to some of these picks.
But there's one word you keep saying, and that is confirmed. What is the likelihood that an RFK Jr. or a Matt Gaetz gets confirmed? Is a recess appointment the only way forward? It sounds like some Republicans may now be wary of allowing Trump to do that.
So when it comes to Gaetz, the signals are there that he would have issue, and Trump is going to have to decide. Do you allow that nomination process to go forward? Because remember, there has been no formal nomination of him yet. He has said, I plan to. And if it fails or if there's signs of enough opposition, yeah, does he hold him back to perhaps appoint him during a recess? We'll have to wait and see. As for RFK Jr., it is a little early to determine that one since it's only come in the last few hours. He may draw an interesting mix of support, though. Not necessarily a lot of Democrats, but I think there are some Democrats sympathetic to some of the things he calls out, especially, for example, the corporate influence over public health officials or what they've done at the FDA, NIH, and other places when it comes to pharmaceuticals, how things are tested or approved, the cost of drugs. In some ways, on some of those various things, he may find favor. But he may also have issues, for example, with social conservatives, because this is somebody who is not staunchly anti-abortion. And if that wing of the Trump coalition and the Republican Party has grave concern, Trump may need to reconsider.
And while we've been on the air, Ed, we know that Trump posted on Truth Social that his own personal attorney, Todd Blanche, would be nominated to Deputy Attorney General. Blanche, of course, a figurehead by his side for many of his legal affairs, including the hush money trial in New York. Ed, former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy was asked by Bloomberg News specifically about Trump picking Gaetz. Let's listen to some of what he said.
You say Gaetz will not be confirmed. Why bother with the nomination then?
You can talk to the president, but it's a good it's a good deflection from others, but it also gives. I'll let it stand with that.
A good deflection from others. If you want to comment on the Blanche nomination and also what he means by that, who would he be deflecting from?
Potentially from Tulsi Gabbard to lead to serve as Director of National Intelligence, Pete Hegseth to serve as Secretary of Defense. Two other unconventional, potentially chaos-creating picks at the departments or the entities that they've been tapped or will be tapped to lead. Again, all in keeping with the Trump agenda, but sure to draw a lot of concern and potentially opposition within the ranks. The Todd Blanche decision, another one to be determined, but more of a legal professional and one that perhaps Republicans can understand that, yes, this is someone close to the president. If he wants to be so far in cahoots with his attorney general, so be it. That's his choosing. We'll see if that choice perhaps not only draws more support, but maybe signals that if there is an issue with Gaetz, Blanche could be elevated to attorney general. All to be seen in the 60-plus days or so to go until Inauguration Day.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. President Biden is kicking off a 6-day visit to Peru and Brazil. While in Peru, he's scheduled to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping almost exactly 1 year after they met face-to-face in California. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand has more.
Here in Peru, President Biden will attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, known as APEC, and meet with allies across the region as the Biden administration has really prioritized the Indo-Pacific region. And on Saturday, the president will meet face-to-face with Chinese President Xi Jinping, their third in-person meeting since Biden took office. The White House says it believes this leader-to-leader communication is an important way to manage this very complicated and consequential relationship. And the president hopes to build on what was discussed during their last meeting in California last year around this time, namely restoring military-to-military communication, which had declined as tensions ratcheted up last year. Now, other issues on the agenda are expected to be fentanyl, AI, China's support for Russia in its war on Ukraine, and cyber, especially in light of a major hacking operation targeting telecom companies, which the U.S. government attributed to Chinese-linked hackers. Now, the president's trip to this summit in Peru and also to the G20 next week also kind of marks a farewell tour for President Biden as he cements these relationships with key allies. While it's unclear how policies and relationships will change under the incoming Trump administration, the White House says that President Biden wants to make clear that U.S. alliances are vital to America's national security. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Lima, Peru.
2 people have been arrested in connection with wildfires that have impacted parts of the Northeast. They're facing charges in separate fires, one on New York's Long Island, the other in a Philadelphia suburb. Many of these wildfires have been fueled by dry conditions, not seen in some states in nearly 120 years. The Jennings Creek fire, which is burning along the New York-New Jersey border, is now 50% contained. Here's CBS News' Tom Hansen with the latest.
Yeah, well, our day started by meeting up with some of the elite teams that are going up onto this ridge and fighting the flames. We met up with the New Jersey Forest Fire Service, and they took us up into these higher altitude areas where the fire is still very much active. It didn't take long for us to understand just how challenging of a task this is because some of these areas are so remote. You have to traverse slick, steep rocks in order to get there. And then, of course, you're stepping over mangled trees and brush, which is the fuel for this wildfire. And that's exactly what these teams are zeroing in on. They are trying to carve a perimeter around the fire where it is just soil. There is no brush that can burn, and they hope that that will keep the flames at bay. That is the plan. And they are seizing on a day when there were not very strong winds out. They were able to make some progress today. We know that they began the day with half of this fire being contained. Interestingly, the New Jersey teams came over to the New York side. One team member told us that that was in part because they didn't want the flames to increase on the New York side and then impact areas back in New Jersey. As you know, we are straddling the line between New Jersey and New York. Now, I should point out that there is still high concern over this wildfire as we look into the days ahead. That's because those dry conditions are expected to continue. New Jersey in particular has not had any significant rain since August, so the grounds are ripe for more flames to pick up if those winds catch an ember and it hits some of that foliage. Hopefully that does not happen. As of now, the progress has been steady. It has been consistent and slow, but we are inching toward more and more of this fire being contained, and hopefully that continues. Back to you.
Tom Hansen, thank you. Still to come, we'll take a deeper dive into what a Justice Department could potentially look like under Matt Gaetz if he is confirmed as Donald Trump's Attorney General. Plus, why some of Trump's cabinet picks are raising questions about how the U.S. could handle conflicts in the Middle East. You're watching The Daily Report.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy! It's gonna be a ride.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not. Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights
What a finish at the final round of play.
and in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone,
This could happen to anybody.
and sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A bankruptcy judge has ordered a hearing on the auction sale of right-wing media outlet InfoWars to satirical news company The Onion after its previous owner, Alex Jones, challenged its legality. The Onion bought InfoWars at auction with the support of some of the families whose loved ones died in the Sandy Hook school shooting. Jones had falsely claimed the 2012 attack was a hoax on the site. The conspiracy theorist was sued by victims' families in order to pay them more than $1 billion in damages. CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano joins me now on set for more. So, Lilia, so many questions here. How did this come to be? How much support did some of the families put behind The Onion, and why is it being challenged?
Okay, I think for the first question, how did this come to be? I asked the CEO of The Onion today, is this a joke? And he said it actually started as a joke. Ben Collins. Okay. He started talking about, look, I mean, wouldn't this be the funniest thing ever and the most ironic? And of course, then it became kind of serious. The way that it came to be is, of course, the families had won that lawsuit against Alex Jones. The judgment was $1.4 billion. He was, earlier this year, the whole thing has been stuck in bankruptcy court for the last 2 years. And in the summer, a judge ruled that his assets needed to be sold. That includes InfoWars. What The Onion is buying is the mailing list, the actual studio, all of the technology that goes into it.
The products that Alex Jones sells?
I asked them that too. I said, wait, does it mean that you guys get all those products? Are you going to sell them? And they don't know. The main thing, the second question you asked is the families. One of the things that is really important to stress is these families, the Connecticut families that are involved in the lawsuit, made that bid competitive by joining forces with The Onion and saying, we will take X amount less, fewer than what we are owed, so that you can outbid the highest bidder.
Fascinating.
And that is what Alex Jones is challenging today. It just came out today that a judge in Texas is ordering a hearing on it to look into how the auction was done, because, of course, Alex Jones doesn't want to release all of his InfoWars platform, which is 25 years old.
And it kind of shows the principle that some of these families are thinking of.
They're
as
saying
well.
It's not about the money.
The damage that was done, they believe. What does The Onion plan to do with the platform?
So I think that the headline there is fighting fear with funny.
Okay.
They're going to build something that they hope will be profitable to change and to battle and to fight the misinformation, and especially not just misinformation, but these shock jocks and these sites and these people on that same line as Alex Jones, which they say are selling fear, unfounded fears, and creating so much division. I asked about, well, you know, if you're going to mock these people, if they're going to feel humiliated, aren't they going to become more aggressive? And they said they don't plan to tackle people directly, but they're figuring out exactly what it's going to look like. And it sounds like it's going to remain InfoWars. They want to transform. Oh, remember that site that used to be that? Now it's this funny thing.
We'll be watching, Lilia Luciano. Thank you.
Thank you.
The U.S.-based advocacy group Human Rights Watch is out with a 154-page report accusing Israel of atrocities against Palestinian civilians. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer has details from Tel Aviv.
The report is called Hopeless, Starving, and Besieged, and it alleges that Israel has committed war crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza. It points out that almost 2 million residents of the Gaza Strip have been forced from their homes by the Israeli military, and some of them more than once. The majority have not been allowed to return. Over 1 million people are now living in tents or temporary shelters. But even if they could go home, there's a good chance they'd find their houses in ruins. 60% of buildings in Gaza have either been damaged or flattened by fighting or bombing. In its battle with Hamas, Israel's military has dropped tens of thousands of tons of explosives on Gaza, much of it in residential areas and city centers. The Human Rights Watch report points out that humanitarian law says an occupying power that evacuates people for a military reason then has to keep them safe. And it alleges that Israel simply hasn't done that in Gaza. It cites examples of designated evacuation routes and safe zones coming under attack and then killing the very people who had fled there. The report also offers evidence that the tight blockade of Gaza has led to a humanitarian catastrophe that amounts to collective punishment, something that is illegal under the internationally recognized rules of war. Back to you.
Elizabeth Palmer, thank you. Donald Trump's re-election win is also raising questions about the fate of the occupied West Bank. Trump's pick for ambassador to Israel, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, was asked on an Israeli radio show if West Bank annexation was possible under the next Trump administration. Here's what he said in response.
Well, of course. And, I won't make the policy. I will carry out the policy of the president. But he has already demonstrated in his first term that there's never been an American president that has been more helpful in securing an understanding of the sovereignty of Israel.
For more, let's bring in Marissa Kerma. She's the director of the Middle East program at the Wilson Center. Marissa, thank you for being here. Huckabee also argued that the West Bank belongs to Israel and once said there is no such thing as a Palestinian. Is that a departure from current U.S. policy?
This is certainly a departure from current U.S. policy, but also policies of various administrations, both Republican and Democratic. It's also a departure from the international community and where it stands on the Palestinian-Israeli issue. The settlements that have expanded, particularly in the last year, and under Bibi Netanyahu's rule in the last 10 years, are deemed illegal under international law. And that is a position that many governments around the world uphold. And once again, the United States has always been steadfast in criticizing Israel for settlement expansion as well as illegal outposts, and has upheld the two-state solution as the only path forward to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So it's certainly a departure from U.S. policy.
What was the U.S. position on West Bank settlements during the first Trump administration, and what does his first administration tell us about a potential second?
Well, there was a slight departure there also with regards to settlement activity. There was if you may, turning a blind eye to Israeli settlement expansion, which, particularly during the past 13 months since the attacks of October 7th have also increased. And if this is going to inform the next administration and what the next White House will do, then this is going to make many people nervous across the region, but particularly key U.S. allies in the GCC and in the Arab world, who continue to uphold the Arab Peace Initiative that promises normalizing relations with Israel if and only if Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory ends and there's a path created for a Palestinian state.
Marissa Kerma, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Getting rid of the Education Department has been something President-elect Donald Trump has repeatedly vowed to do. But what exactly does that plan entail? And is it something he can do while in office? We're going to get some clarity. You're watching The Daily Report.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
This is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places. Bright, shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Here are some additions to our top stories. The number of Americans filing for unemployment fell to its lowest level in 6 months last week, according to new data from the Labor Department. Jobless claim applications fell by 4,000 to 217,000. Meanwhile, mortgage rates fell for the first time in 7 weeks to less than 6.8%. The number of people sickened in the McDonald's E. coli outbreak has reached at least 104, with 34 hospitalized. A CDC update says cases have been reported in 14 states with at least 1 death. The agency says slivered onions on Quarter Pounders were the likely source. McDonald's is now using a different onion supplier, and the FDA says there is no longer a food safety concern tied to the chain. President-elect Donald Trump has made clear he wants to fill his cabinet using recess appointments. According to the Center for Presidential Transitions, during Trump's first administration, cabinet confirmations took an average of 30.9 days. Recess appointments would allow Trump to largely avoid that timely process to fill his cabinet and avoid the potential rejection of his picks. Trump announced 3 additional picks Thursday to join his administration, starting with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. He also picked former Congressman Doug Collins of Georgia for Secretary of Veterans Affairs and his own personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, for Deputy Attorney General. For more, let's bring in CBS News political reporter Hunter Woodall. Hunter, good to see you. How do recess appointments work? And if someone is appointed this way, is it the same as being confirmed? How does this all work?
Well, Lindsay, good evening. And this is the fascinating thing about recess appointments. This is a power that Donald Trump, that any president technically has because of the Constitution. It just hasn't been used much lately, as my colleagues have reported, over the last decade, because both chambers of Congress have said, hey, they didn't like this process in the past. They didn't like former President Barack Obama having this power when he was in office. But this is something that both, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama have used. But Donald Trump is now saying he wants to use it, given this trifecta of Republican power he has. A recess appointment, as you mentioned, it allows a Trump nominee that would have to be confirmed by the GOP-controlled Senate to actually avoid that process for a time. And that's the big thing. The Senate has that advice and consent, role in confirming and judging Trump's nominees. This goes away for a time with that appointment, if he does these recess appointments, and that's worrying Democrats. And also Republicans, some of them don't seem exactly enthusiastic about this either.
Can you explain the history of recess appointments? Why are they allowed, and have they been used or blocked before?
And that's the key thing. Like I said, this is in the Constitution. It is a power that the president has. But what it means is that, there was a court ruling about a decade ago that said if the Senate is in recess for, I think it's about 10 days or so, 10 days or more, a president can make recess appointments. Now, the Senate has avoided this by doing something that's called a pro forma session. They essentially go in there, they bang in the gavel, they turn the lights on, and they get out of there pretty quickly because neither side wanted a president to have this power because the Senate has said, hey, they want this role. They have this under the Constitution, this idea, advice and consent. They have this check on the executive branch. Donald Trump's now saying, I want to be able to do this fast. And he has a Republican trifecta in the House. He has the Senate. He's going to have the White House soon. The idea that he has this power, he wants to actually be able to use it. It's an open question whether or not the Senate will actually buy into it, though.
Hunter Woodall, thank you. As we reported, President-elect Donald Trump's decision to select now former Congressman Matt Gaetz as his attorney general is making quite an impression in Washington. Gaetz, who resigned from Congress Wednesday, was elected to represent Florida's 1st District in 2017. The 42-year-old is an attorney and a close ally of Trump and vocal supporter of his agenda. Gaetz was once being investigated for alleged sex trafficking by the very department he's being nominated to lead. He was never charged, and he denies all allegations. He's also been a longtime critic of the Justice Department and the current Attorney General, Merrick Garland.
This is the first time in American history that the FBI and Justice Department have been weaponized through the actions of a political party. We sought a meeting with the Attorney General. We went to the Department of Justice, and we weren't even allowed in the lobby. What is Merrick Garland hiding? It seems that senior officials in our Justice Department have no problem giving long speeches to try to politically target and smear those they disagree with.
Are you concerned you'll be indicted?
No.
For more, I want to bring in Harry Littman. He's a former U.S. attorney and assistant deputy attorney general. Harry, good to see you, and thanks for being with us. You write in your column for the Los Angeles Times, quote, in Matt Gaetz, Donald Trump has chosen the anti-attorney general. What are you hearing from your former colleagues, the rank and file within the DOJ, who have served under multiple presidents?
It's true, and it's important they've served under multiple presidents, and when there are transitions, some people chafe a little. This is by far the biggest crisis of morale and flat-out depression and horror that I've ever seen. You have many people in the department saying, maybe I need to leave. It's one thing to have someone come in with new policies, Lindsay. They're having someone come in to be their boss who has contempt for and hostility toward the department's basic mission, the thing that they're so proud of working toward every day. So they are truly horrified.
I want to ask you sort of a double question here, because in your column, you also write about his qualifications, or in your view, lack thereof. I want you to dive into that for us a little bit, and also what his appointment and possible confirmation would mean for possible retribution within the Justice Department against Trump's enemies.
Two things, both important. You've never had an attorney general in the last 100 years, at least, and maybe before, who's had such slim legal experience. He has zero prosecutorial experience and barely any legal experience at all, just a short stint in a private firm in Florida before entering into politics. On the reprisals, let's just start with the notion that there's really no real argument, notwithstanding what you just played, Lindsay, that Jack Smith or Letitia James, maybe the two biggest targets, have done anything wrong other than their jobs. But you have in him someone who will zealously do what he sees as Trump's bidding to go after these folks. And, the power of the federal government and DOJ is so ominous and wide-ranging. You can ruin people whether or not you convict them. We're talking about public servants who have to get lawyers and can be dragged through the mud. It's a nightmare for anyone who's been on Trump's bad side, of which there are many, of course.
Project 2025, which Trump has distanced himself from, sort of a conservative blueprint for the next presidency, calls for putting the DOJ under the, quote, direct supervision and control of the President of the United States as a component of the executive branch, and that, quote, litigation decisions must be made consistent with the president's agenda. How would that transform the department, and is that antithetical to what the department was created to do?
Completely, and yes, at least since Watergate, when we thought we had learned our lesson. And, I definitely experienced this as the sort of third rail when I was there. It's been a sacrosanct principle that you don't have the White House telling the department what to do. There are norms and memoranda with every administration. So this is not some kind of reform, but just a total reversal, taking a sledgehammer, as Trump's ally put it, to the important tenets of the DOJ. And then other things in Project 2025, basically weakening the Civil Rights Division, weakening oversight of local police departments, trying to strengthen the Comstock Act, which says from 19th century you can't send contraceptive materials through the mail. It's all a very Trumpian agenda, and again, not a change of priorities or a change of direction, but a complete evisceration of it. That's why people in the department are so horrified today.
Harry Litman, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay.
With just over 2 months until President-elect Donald Trump takes office, there are some questions about what happens to the nation's education system. According to a recent Pew Research Center survey, Americans are split on their opinions of the education department. Take a look at your screen. 44% have favorable views of the agency, which was created under President Jimmy Carter in 1979. 45% say they see it as unfavorable. Trump expressed frustration with the department several times while on the campaign trail.
President Biden is not allowed to wipe out hundreds of billions and perhaps trillions of dollars in student loan debt, which would have been very unfair.
We will get critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools.
We will ultimately eliminate the federal Department of Education and send education back to Wisconsin and back to the states.
Laura Meckler joins us now to explain the effects of those proposals. She's a national education writer for The Washington Post. Thank you so much for being here, Laura. When Trump says bring it back to the states, what does that mean?
Well, it's a little confusing because the states and, of course, local school boards already control education. So it's not exactly clear what he's talking about. But I guess the way it's been interpreted is potentially getting rid of the Department of Education or severely slashing its budget.
What does the Education Department do? What would a complete overhaul or elimination look like?
So it does a few things. It administers the federal student loan program. That's probably the biggest thing it does. And as part of that, it sets some rules of the road for colleges. That's a major part of its mission. On the K-12 side, it also enforces civil rights laws. I should say that goes for colleges as well. It's against the law if you receive federal money to discriminate against students or others on the basis of race or sex or some other factors as well, and it enforces those laws. It also provides a lot of money for K-12 schools through the Title I program, which aids high poverty schools, and through a program for students with disabilities.
So let's talk about college student loan forgiveness. This was pivotal during the Biden administration. What would cutting the Education Department mean for student borrowers?
The Just a couple things. I mean, in terms of the Biden debt forgiveness program, I think regardless of whether there is an education department or not an education department, those programs are going to go away. Many of them have already been challenged in court, and it's clear that President Trump does not support them. So he can keep the education department and get rid of the debt forgiveness. Now, if the education department itself were to be closed, which I should say I don't think is very likely because it would require 60 votes in the Senate due to filibuster rules. But let's just say it did go away. I think the vision is that those duties would be transferred to another part of government, perhaps the Treasury Department, for instance, or a quasi-governmental organization. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any more student loans available. So a lot of what would happen in the vision of closing the education department is essentially farming out its responsibilities to other parts of government. But I just think it's also important to remember that you can make big changes in federal education policy, even with a department in hand. In fact, arguably, you can make bigger changes if you keep the department.
So we've talked about the likelihood, what could happen, what it could look like. What are you hearing in your reporting about reaction? I mean, we sort of mentioned the breakdown, according to Pew, of how people view the Department of Education. What are you hearing about the likelihood or impending potential overhaul?
Yeah, I mean, it's in that underneath those Pew numbers, in fact, you see that Republicans are far more likely to express a negative view of the education department than Democrats are. That's true for other federal agencies as well. But there definitely is a partisan split here. In fact, Republicans off and on have been talking about getting rid of the education department for years, basically since it was created back to Ronald Reagan. What I'm hearing from folks, both Republicans and Democrats, is that this is not going to happen because of the high hurdle that I mentioned. It's not even clear to me that all Republicans would be on board with this. And there's a definite strain within the conservative movement, people who really don't want to see the education department closed per se, but would like to see them use the Department of Education to press a conservative culture war agenda. So, for instance, just as the Biden administration has told schools, hey, you have to respect the rights of transgender students or you're out of compliance with federal law, the Trump administration could do the opposite. It could say, if you offer certain protections to, say, transgender students, let's say you let them use bathrooms or locker rooms or compete on sports teams, then now you're out of compliance with federal law, essentially using the same tools, but in the opposite direction. So I'm hearing that from conservatives as well. But yes, there is a lot. I think the idea of closing the department is something that really just hits people. A lot of people think it would be an extreme step. So I think it would probably be fairly unpopular, broadly speaking.
Laura Meckler, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Some health companies say they've seen a surge in sales for the morning after pill following Trump's election win last week. So what should you know about emergency contraceptives? And is there a reason to be concerned about the future of reproductive health? A doctor joins me next to help answer those questions. You're watching The Daily Report.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I can see clearly now.
Clearly, CBS Mornings.
Weekdays on CBS.
Yeah!
Tony, coming? No, I'm gonna stick around for an hour.
Hey! CBS Mornings Plus with Adriana Diaz and Tony DeCopel, right after CBS Mornings.
It's just like mornings.
Plus fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
These
These 7 miles of tunnels were the secret storage site for fuel for the Navy's Pacific Fleet in planes.
So this is one of the tanks.
Oh my gosh.
What happened 20 stories below ground is a story for 60 Minutes.
This thing that was a lifeline for the fleet is a threat.
That's right.
I'm Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours, and of all the cases I've covered, this is the one that troubles me most. Listen to Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green, wherever you get your podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Sunday morning, a visit with the Wayans at Papa's house, plus affairs of state with the diplomat, and in praise of pigeons. Listen for the trumpet.
Sales of emergency contraceptives spiked in the days following last week's election, according to data compiled by our CBS News Confirmed team. Winx Health, a sexual health company, reported a 966% increase in the sale of its morning after pill in the 60 hours following the election compared to the week before. President-elect Donald Trump has boasted about his role in overturning Roe v. Wade, the landmark Supreme Court case that protected the right to abortions. In May, Trump said he would consider restricting access to birth control. He later walked back that comment. Dr. Jessica Shepard joins us now. She is a gynecologist and founder of Modern Menno Health. Doctor, thank you for being here. What should people know about emergency contraceptives such as the morning after pill? Do they expire if people are stockpiling them? Is there a concern that patients doing so could use them incorrectly?
Well, let's start first with the concern, and I think rightly so that women should be concerned about their reproductive health, especially as we're starting with the new administration. And as you mentioned, we have seen that there has been boasting of, again, bringing down the reproductive or bringing in, Supreme Court justices that actually did give us where we are now with states that actually have abortion bans. So being in one of those states myself, I do see on a personal level this concern and how people are increasing the awareness of what they need to do if something were to happen and they needed to make a decision.
We're also seeing a spike in doctor's appointments for long-acting reversible birth control. Planned Parenthood reported a 760% increase for appointments for intrauterine devices or IUDs on November 6th, the day after the election. What long-term birth control options are there? What should people know about them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the more that people know that they can make better decisions for themselves. When we look at long-term acting contraception, these are types of contraception that are actually going to be the best ones that are going to be preventing pregnancy because they last for a long amount of time, anywhere from 3 years to as much as 10 years. So when we think of the intrauterine device, this is going to be something that's being placed by a physician in the office, but again, can last for up to 10 years. And if someone wants to take it out prior to that, they can. So these are the types of things that we really should be shifting the information to, is not so much on where we can and cannot get an abortion, but also what are the things that we can do right now that are going to be kind of in a way positive for people to say that I am protected and I do not have to have the worry considering what state that I live in.
What are the most important questions women who are worried about the reproductive health should ask their doctor?
Absolutely. The imperative things that they should be asking are, for me as an individual, what are the options that I have? And also, abortion is not illegal in some states, and knowing exactly where you live and what the actual laws are for that state. I would think that that is probably the most important thing, because in a time of crisis or in a time of need, it's absolutely imperative based on time where you can go and what services that you can get. And last but not least is making sure that we advocate for other people that we know in our communities and making sure that they're getting the help that they need, because we do not want people to, again, miss that time frame of care that they can get and find themselves in a dire situation.
Dr. Jessica Shepard, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A lengthy drought in Massachusetts is proving to be a major Scrooge this holiday season. killing more than 500 newly planted Christmas trees at one farm. Those trees made up around 20 to 25% of the 2,700 trees planted at Vandervalk Farm in Mendon, Massachusetts. The manager says their trees are yellow on the inside and have been shedding needles. In total, the farm has about 10,000 trees now, but may face shortages over the next few years. Massachusetts and other parts of the Northeast have endured serious drought conditions for more than a month. Scientists say they found what they believe is the world's largest coral near the Pacific Solomon Islands. The coral was so large that upon its discovery, scientists thought they actually found a massive shipwreck. The mega coral is about 111 feet wide, 104 feet long, 3 times bigger than the previous record holder, and has likely been growing for more than 300 years. The size and the health of the coral are giving scientists a glimmer of hope for marine life, since nearby shallow reefs continue to deteriorate due to warmer ocean temperatures. A piece of history with 300 carats, a nearly $5 million price tag, and an air of mystery. The story behind this auction necklace and its possible connection to one of the most famous royals of all time. You're watching The Daily Report.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now, we got something crazy.
and reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative,
Da-da-da-da.
and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database,
This person needs a closer look.
a growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone,
This could happen to anybody.
and sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The Tampa Bay Rays have announced their new home for the 2025 MLB season after their old stadium was severely damaged during Hurricane Milton. They'll play at Steinbrenner Field, a minor league stadium, and the spring training home of their division rivals, the New York Yankees. Officials say it has the same quality of any MLB facility and will allow the Rays to remain in Tampa. The regular home Tropicana Field had its roof torn during Hurricane Milton. It'll cost nearly $56 million to repair before the 2026 MLB season, according to a city report. The Rays join the Athletics as the only teams to host their regular season games in a minor league facility. U.S. skier Lindsey Vonn is heading back to the slopes. The three-time Olympic medalist is coming out of retirement to rejoin the U.S. ski team, 6 years after her last Olympics. The 40-year-old Olympian had retired due to injuries back in 2019, but she says she's been training pain-free for months. Vonn has 82 World Cup victories, temporarily setting a record for a woman until Michaela Schifrin surpassed her in 2023. It's still unclear which particular races Vonn plans to enter. A mysterious necklace, possibly tied to the downfall of French Queen Marie Antoinette, has a new owner after fetching nearly $5 million at auction Wednesday. The necklace, containing 300 carats of diamonds, sold for roughly double its estimate. Some of those jewels are believed to be connected to the diamond necklace affair of the 1780s, when a woman pretending to be a friend of Marie Antoinette bought it on an IOU in the Queen's name. While she was not actually involved, it contributed to her worsening reputation of being a lavish spender in the years leading up to the French Revolution. Sotheby's says the unidentified buyer was ecstatic and came to the auction, quote, ready to fight. Here's a look at some of the stories we're covering in our next hour. Reaction on Capitol Hill following some of President-elect Trump's most controversial picks for his cabinet. We'll have the latest from Washington. President Biden travels to Peru for a key economic summit and a much-anticipated meeting with his Chinese counterpart. More on what to expect from the trip. And a Human Rights Watch accuses Israel of war crimes in the Gaza Strip. More on the allegations and what one of Trump's U.S. diplomatic picks has to say about the West Bank. You're streaming CBS News.